All righty. Thank you for joining us this beautiful Sunday, May 15th, 2022 evening for Witness to History. As we know, this is a way for us to get to know our neighbors better. And today we are in for a treat. Thank you for being inside this evening because we know outside is beckoning us, but we're here for a more important reason. To have a conversation with Shirley Ramsey. Hello, Shirley. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Good, good, good. And so, as usual, let me thank you for being our guest this evening. And before we get started on our conversation and have everybody learn about your wonderful story, I just want to thank a few people. I want to thank Theo Darden the fourth. I don't know if he's with us this evening, but as all of us know, Theo has taken Colin Compton's place. So he's
I met him.
yes. So, he's going to make sure we all stay connected. I'm sure he's going to be in the neighborhood and we'll get to know him very well. And I'd like to thank, of course, Megan Hayes with the Shaker Public Library for keeping Witness to History in the catalog so everybody can log in forever, because it's digital. And of course, John Dutton for your unwavering commitment and talents in bringing Witness to History to us every month. And Kevin and Lee for inspiring this wonderful opportunity for us to stay connected through Witness to History pretty much every month since August 2020. So here we are again. We are in for a special treat this evening, folks. And what I think of when I think of Shirley Ramsey is the word advocate. Is that all right, Shirley?
That's fine.
We know that about you. And we're going to have a beautiful conversation. This beautiful picture right here, and John pulled that up. So I'm going to start off with that. Shirley, please tell us, and I think people may know, but please tell us about this picture that we're looking at this particular time.
That's a picture in the Shelton Road Playground when the artists came over to do the mural. They decided they were going to do a puzzle. And I was out painting puzzle pieces along with quite a few of our other, neighbors. And I had them take a picture. I've been a long time advocate of that park. When I moved here, the park was a muddy mess back there. Yes. Over the years, I have advocated for that playground. So I thought that it would be just that a picture of me be in the playground. So
that's wonderful.
I asked them, would you put a picture of me on this wall?
Yeah,
I think I deserve that. So
yes.
So that was what happened. They took the picture, they put the picture of me, in the park. And
that's wonderful.
A lot of people know me from, being an advocate for that playground.
Oh, yes. And continue to, in our conversations about traffic calming, there will be some efforts to make sure that people slow down because there's a park there. Many people don't necessarily know. I understand this evening that your son Kenny is also with us, and he's going to say a few words here and there as we have our conversation, and we'll bring Kenny in a little bit. All right, there you are.
There he is.
There you are. Welcome. Well, Shirley, there's so much to cover in your story. As many of you may know, I take notes while I'm preparing for Witness to History. I have 8 pages of notes, okay? Single space, because we had such a wonderful conversation.
We did.
Yes, we did. Let's start off just with, my question ordinarily is just, why did you move to the Moreland area, to Shaker, and when?
I moved to the Shaker area in 1974. Mm-hmm. My son was 5 at the time. I was expecting my second child. My in-laws owned a duplex here, and we moved, in the upstairs of the duplex, and they were planning a move south, and so they sold us the house, and I've been here,
That's good for us. 74.
Yes, 74. So it's been 47 years.
Okay.
And I've been here Mhm.
My goodness, that's wonderful. Shelton Road would not be the same without you. Believe me, believe me. You're one of the first people I can remember when I moved on to Sudbury in '82.
Uh-huh.
You were just so present and so involved. And I just felt when my children came around the corner to play on Shelton Road, I didn't have to worry about them. They didn't necessarily have to be
Absolutely.
in my eyesight. I knew that other parents were watching out for them. Well, let's go back a little bit earlier, just in terms of your upbringing, where were you born, and all of that. Just tell us a little
Well,
bit
I
background.
was born in the South in a small town called Union Springs, Alabama.
Mhm.
It's situated between Montgomery and Tuskegee,
Mm,
Alabama. I lived there until I was about 12 years old with my grandmother. I was raised by her, a strong Black woman,
mm.
and I got a lot of characteristics from my grandmother.
Oh, nice.
My mom had left to be a nanny
Mm,
and went to New York, I think her
mm,
first uh, trip, and I stayed there with my grandmother. Um, I came to Cleveland when I was in fifth grade the first time,
mm,
and I
mhm.
went to Charles H. Lake Elementary School, which was off of 91st and St. Clair.
Okay. Mhm.
The first year that I came, I did not do well. I
Mm.
was homesick,
Yes.
and I just didn't do well. So my mom had to send me back. I
Mhm.
went back for a year, and was told you're coming back and you'll stay this time. So
Okay.
I had to make the adjustment. The
Mhm.
adjustment was not easy because I was raised with aunts and uncles that were close to my age,
Yes. Okay. Mhm.
and I considered them like siblings to me. So
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
I left the South and came to live with my mom, I am an only child. It was difficult for me adjusting to just being by myself,
Yes, but I'm
you know.
sure that is,
Yeah,
has a lot to do with your strength too. I'm sure.
yes, it does.
I can't
So,
even imagine. I can't even imagine.
well,
And
moving from the South to the city
mhm,
was a big transition. That
sure.
was a major transition.
Right.
And I think a lot of the things that wind up happening with me and to me was a result of the fact that I was a naive Southern
Hmm.
uh, church going young
Yeah.
lady.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, 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 yes. And at that time, that was in the 60s, or early
yes,
60s or
yes,
so. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, many people were moving, but not many people move up by themselves. And I
yes,
mean, and coming, to a place where you say, but you're from a really strong family. You told me about your
mhm,
grandmother and your mother. And so, I mean, the strength that you have certainly came out of that experience, I'm sure, as well as
yes,
the others. So I have down here one phrase that says, you were becoming your own person.
yes,
That's one of the things
yes,
you found when you were here. So where did you
yes.
graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school, John Hay Extension High School.
Mhm, mhm,
I went
mhm,
to John Adams, and
mhm.
then I left John Adams and went to night school at John Hay, and I finished in 1970 at John Hay Extension Night School.
Okay, okay, all righty. So, let's kind of fast forward. I think I want to talk about, your family. And here's this beautiful picture. Tell us who's in this
Yes,
picture.
that is myself at a young age, my husband at a young age. There's Kenny, I call him Kenny, they call him Harold. And then that's Tara
Yes.
in the lower left right hand side,
Uh-huh.
my right. Uh, that we took that picture, after we had been here a couple of years. Joy had not made an appearance at that time.
Okay, okay, okay.
I have big gaps between my children.
Mhm,
Uh, Kenny is 5 years, 11 months older than Tara,
mhm,
and
mhm.
Tara is 7 years older than Joy.
Okay.
So there were big gaps. I thought I was through when I had Kenny and
Okay.
and Tara, but the Lord said no.
No.
Uh, there's another one to come. So then came Joy.
Yeah, yeah. God said he needs some little sisters, huh?
Yes, yes,
All
yes,
righty, all righty. I remember Tara, which is a little bit older than that. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. I surely do because Tara and Miata are the same age, so they were
Yes,
Mormon together for a
yes.
while. So tell us about your children, and Kenny can chime in here. You told me that Kenny started off at Moreland,
We
and
started off
then
at Moreland.
tell us about the story about him going to elementary school.
Well, it was awesome. It was a neighborhood school. I can remember, first day of kindergarten, us walking hand in hand to up to Moreland School, you know, uh, talking about the crosswalks and different things as we went to the school. And it was a good experience. I thought he can chime in and tell me what the Moreland
How he
experience
would have
was for
done.
him.
Okay, okay.
Well, the Moreland experience was short because I was only there for, 3 years
Okay.
before the Shaker School District had instituted a um, kind of accelerated achievement program for
Mhm.
students throughout um, the school district. And the
Mhm.
idea was to try and bus all of these achievers together
Mhm.
into
Mhm.
one building and to try and see how they all work together. So, I was at Moreland for a very short period of time before I went to Ludlow and ended up meeting a lot of people that I'm still very close friends
Okay.
with.
Okay. So that turned out to be good. You had no idea that you were going into another school. Just, then Ludlow was a school for gifted students. So how was that a transition?
Well, at the time, as a youngster, I don't think I thought too much about it. They were just like, well, you're going to go to school here. And,
Mhm.
I've always been a sort of laid back individual. So I just like, okay, this is where I'm going.
Yeah, as long as it's
So,
your kids.
um, and then once we got there, what we discovered was the rest of the school was still a regular K through
Mhm.
6 school. So it
Mhm.
was just our particular class
Mm.
and students in that class that were in this accelerated environment. So it's like we were on kind of in our own little petri dish. So,
Mm.
but we were still interacting with other students in the school who were not part of that
Mm.
program. And for example, as fourth graders, we would have a French teacher come in,
Mhm.
Miss
Mhm.
Volio, or not Miss Volio, Miss Berger, if memory serves. And she would come in and she was teaching, fourth graders
Mhm.
French. Probably not unusual for parents who speak French or
Mhm.
necessarily language, and it's something they would probably do with their children out, but from students all across the district who are coming here and suddenly they're being, okay, we're going to teach you all French. And this is not something that they were doing for the other
Right.
K-6
Yeah.
students. So
Mhm.
this is just an example of what they were offering and asking the students in my class to do. And so we all hung together for 3
Mm.
years,
Mhm.
basically
Okay.
4th through 6 before we
Okay. So
all
you
ended
really
up
built a
being
community.
divided and going off to middle school.
Yes, yes, you really built a community there.
So can you unmute your mom? I apologize. I was
Oh,
trying to cut down the echo a little bit.
okay. Okay, now we can't hear her at all.
Yeah, I muted her.
Oh,
So you just need to unmute,
oh.
Shirley.
Okay.
Mhm.
My son started to school there at Moreland in kindergarten, and we were dealing with some little issues, in terms of they said his behavior.
Mhm.
Um, and so, there were various things that went on. They said he was hyperactive, they recommended some medication for him. And I went through all of that. I was a young mother
Mhm.
and I was trying to do what they said was in the best interest of my child. But later when he got in 3rd grade, and I don't remember the teacher's name, but she called me into the school and said, I've been watching your child. And I have found that what is happening with him, he's not so much hyper. He gets up after he has finished his work and he goes around and try to help the other students. Now, no one had paid any attention to that. They were just trying to label him, as a, hyperactive child, get into stuff. So she said, I'm going to call, if you don't mind, for the school testers to come in and test him.
For her.
So they had the school testers come in and test him, and he tested off the chart.
Oh, goodness.
So the teacher said, the only thing that's wrong with your child is that he's bored. And, he's helpful. He wants to help the other students do as well as he is doing. So I appreciate that teacher. I was looking through pictures, trying to remember what her name was. But she took the time and the energy to take a look at my child as a whole person.
Absolutely.
And try and determine exactly what was going on with him. And, she came to the conclusion after they tested him that this is a gifted child and he is bored. So they put him in the program, the accelerated program to, kind of get him on at a level where he needed to be, because I think his little body was trying to keep up with his mind.
Right. Challenge.
He had been,
send it in a direction that's, is where it should be. It's where it should be. Well, thank goodness for that teacher.
Yes. And he thrived over there, even though I had a couple of challenges, with them over there, but he thrived. They taught Latin, they taught all kinds of different subjects, matters there. And he was able to withstand that, and flourish there.
Yes, and look at this. Okay, tell us about this article.
Okay, this article, his grandparents, the ones that we moved in the house with, they had moved to Georgia at that time. And when they discovered that Kenny was going to the school, they, were so proud. And they, I guess they were, it's a small community. So they, did a little article talking about their grandson going off to, this gifted school. And that's a picture of Kenny when he was in 4th grade.
Oh,
so,
nice.
It just talked about, he was attending Ludlow in Shaker Heights in the gifted and talented program. And it talked about they were given enrichment subjects. And, they did philosophy, they did all kinds of different things. And as I said, that was just what he needed. That was just what he needed. And I'm so appreciative that they took a second look at exactly what was going on, with my child. And I'd say to a lot of parents, be aware and stay involved. I was very actively involved with the schools, even at a young age. I became involved. I was co-PTA president at Mercer when the kids went to Mercer. I was on the PTA board where we went with Mark Freeman and met, with him. So I always stayed actively involved in the schools and encouraged my neighbors as they moved in to get involved and stay involved with their children. Because a lot of parents had the idea, well, we are now in Shaker, the school district is highly ranked. So, they kind of let their guards down, we have arrived. And, I was here to tell them that's not what it's all about. You still have work to be done.
Absolutely.
So I worked tirelessly, to encourage parents to please get involved with your children.
Absolutely. And so your advocacy and support of your child, of course, spreads to all other children as well.
Yes.
Because when, one parent advocates for their child, it makes people really think about, children more broadly. So Kenny went to Ludlow. Tara, your other daughter, went to Moreland.
Tara went to Moreland for, I think it was 3 years. When they opened up where the children had an opportunity to go to Fernway. So we transferred Tara to Fernway.
Okay.
And she went Fernway, I think it was 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So both of my children were out of Moreland at, after a short period of time being there.
Okay. So then Moreland closes. Now you don't have any children in Moreland at this particular point, but you're still a very present parent.
Yes.
And so, of course, we lived in Moreland during the time of the reorganization. So tell us about your involvement in that and the fact that your voice and other parents' voices really made a difference in terms of that time period that the schools were reorganized.
Well, first of all, the neighborhood and the parents, we were not supportive of the school closing. So, we protested the school closing, and they left the school open for an additional year. It was our hopes that we would get the school to remain open because they closed so many of the schools in the predominantly minority areas. So, we got out, me and several other parents got out and we protested about the closing of the school, which gave us another year and gave some students an opportunity to complete that K through 6, program. Now, mind you, I no longer had a kid at Moreland, but this was our neighborhood school.
Yes.
So, I had fond memories of being, in the neighborhood, walking my children to school, and I wanted the school to remain an option, so, they wind up closing the school.
Yes.
Closing several of them. I think it was they closed Ludlow, they closed Moreland, they closed, I think it was Sussex
and Malvern.
And Malvern. So those were the schools that were closed. And our kids, we had lengthy meetings about this reorganization. And I was involved in the biggest majority of the meetings. We had a lot of controversy going on during that time because, the parents in Mercer were not for, the busing of the children to Mercer. And our parents here, this was the longest ride for any students, to travel on the bus. And we just felt as though the, the integration was placed on the backs of our children. And, so I got very much involved with it because I was at the school one day.
Yes, tell us.
When they first started, Joy was my one that went to kindergarten there. And that was the year of the reorganization. Well, I drove her to school that day and we, hand in hand, we walking in the building. And as we're walking in the building, I had the experience of a group of parents saying, look, they've bused these kids to our school. So I turned around and said, what? So, that made me know that I had to stay involved. I had to stay involved. And for every day that my daughter was at that school, I made it a point of being in the building. I volunteered for the lunch program. I volunteered for the playground area, and I became co-president, co-PTA president. Up there, we had an opportunity. They were really vocal and insistent, even though it was not our desire or our children's desire to be bussed out of their community. This was what the school board, said. And I made that a point when I would get into the PTA meetings. This was not something that we asked. We no more wanted to be here than you wanted us to be here, but we have arrived. So now, you have to deal with the situation. I dealt with a situation where I tried to get my daughter in a Girl Scout troop at Mercer. They said the troop was closed.
Yes.
And then my fighting spirit kicked in. So I decided that this was Joy was going to be a part of that troop at Mercer. And so she did, they did some other little things to train a person and send them back down, in this area. But, my view on that is, we're living a lie. You're saying you're integrating, but you're bringing the kids here, and they didn't even have a late bus at that time for the
You
kids
told me
to
that.
be involved in after-school
activities.
The kids would be bussed in, and at the end of the school day, they were bussed out. Now, they later did get, some late buses, but when we first went there, it was like our kids felt like they were visitors. They came in, they could take no ownership for the school because they, couldn't get connected with the other children because they were bussed in and they were bussed out. The only time the children got together was during recess time when they played together. So, that was one of the things that, bothered me. We finally got to a point where we started having meetings down on this end.
Didn't you tell me that you had meetings sometimes at your house?
I had meetings in this very house upstairs. I opened up my home. I'm like, we can, we need to, divide this equally. Have parents that are in this area. Some of the parents were like a one-car situation with the family. So, and I was myself. My husband went off to work and he would take the car, and I was home, biggest part of the day with the children. To the point one day I walked to Mercer.
You told me that. Now,
I walked to
most
Mercer.
of us know the no shaker.
Yes.
So we know that's the furthest point.
Yes.
From
I
the
walked,
south end of Shaker to the northern part of Shaker. Yes.
Because Joy had some very, some very disappointing situations at Mercer. And so, as I saw her, cry about different little things, I decided that I had to be involved, and she had to see a familiar face, someone that she knew, loved and cared about her every day. So I struck out one day. It was not my intentions to walk all the way, to the school, but I got to walking, and before I knew it, I was at Warrensville, and Woodland, and I said, well, that's just up the hill. So I continued to walk, and, I wind up walking all the way to Mercer School that particular day.
For your child. And you were a lunch aide? You said that you
I was a
actually
lunch
were
aide?
there.
Yes.
You were there from day to day, so you could really
Yes.
and that people had to understand that this is also our school.
Yes. And that was what I advocated for. This is our school also. The children, have come here, and they need to learn how, and you need to teach them how to take ownership for the school. This is their school as well as it is, your school. The kids were so young, my daughter was the first grade that went there in kindergarten. So, they they were young, they didn't care about anything, they were at a new school, but the one thing that was a big challenge for me and my husband, my son is 13 years older than Joy. So when Joy went to kindergarten, my husband went to kindergarten with Joy, and I went off to Kenyon College with my son.
Just happened to land on the same day.
It was on the same day. So I was at Kenyon College, getting him enrolled, and my daughter was going off to kindergarten with her dad. So
yes. You can only be in one place at one time.
Yes.
So that worked out.
It did, because I came back and put my hat on and got involved, very much so involved, with the school and everything that was going on, at the school. So I was a constant present there at the school.
That's wonderful, and wonderful for all the children who were there. I mean, I couldn't imagine. Actually, I'll tell you, that when Moreland closed, and your advocacy and parents who really were involved in attempting to keep Moreland open, my youngest daughter, Mariama, was going into 6th grade, the year that Moreland was supposed to close. So I was just bothered, by the thought that she would have had to make 2 transitions, like 2 years in a row. And so you go into another school in 6th grade and then another transition in 7th grade, and then the school decided not to close.
Yes.
The board decided. Now we had already moved to Lomond. This is how principals, and you mentioned Bernie Stokes. I had told Dolores Groves, who was the principal at Moreland, I said, well, we don't live in Moreland, we live in Lomond. She was like, well, so she was like, she's in 6th grade. She's been here all these years. Like, you don't necessarily have to put her at another school because you're in another neighborhood. She's been here this long. So principals, tell us a little bit about Bernice Stokes, because she was the principal of Mercer.
Yes, Bernice was the principal at Mercer at the time that organization took place. And, she was a guiding force for me, in my quest to make sure that our children got, an opportunity to take ownership for the school. She was very encouraging and very supportive at that particular time. She was an advocate for all the children there at the school. But when issues were brought to her, such as the Girl Scout troop situation, she addressed that for me, immediately. And, we wind up, they wind up having to open the troop up. I had never heard of a closed troop, but that was something that they decided that they were telling us. So when they,
I said they made it up.
Probably so, because I had never heard of anything like that. And my oldest had been a part of Girl Scouts, and then Joy became a part of Girl Scouts. I had Girl Scout cookies coming out of my living room one year. So yes, so I was very actively involved with my children, and whatever it is that, we decided that they were, going to do.
You had another encounter. I think Kenny had another encounter in high school. This sounds familiar. I'm wondering if it's the same teacher. You said an English teacher.
I think it was an English teacher. The English teacher that was a Black male teacher that, wind up saying to my son, he was in AP classes. And after he came out of the gifted and talented program, he went to mostly AP classes. This particular gentleman, and I don't remember what his name was, said to me, your son does not belong in this class.
Maybe your mother didn't tell you that, Kenny.
And I was, what? And I got, very, upset and told him, instead of you trying to encourage this young Black male to be the best that he can be, you're saying that he does not belong here. And I want to know, where are you coming up with this? Why are you saying that he does not belong, here in this class? So, we, of course, him and I had a running battle. I don't know if I took him out of that class or if he stayed there, and I just, continued to fight, because I was a fighter. If I saw something that I thought was not right, I was going to address it. Absolutely. If it had to do with my kid or any other kid, I would walk the halls of the Shaker High School. They would tell my daughter, your mother is in the building. I would walk through the buildings. I'd see kids in the neighborhood. I'm direct them. You go to class. What are you doing out here in the hallway? So I was an advocate for all the children, and Tara hated to see me come. When I wind up coming to the building, it was something that she had gotten into. That was my challenge, but we stayed on it. We stayed on it.
I want to move forward a little bit. I understand you're also the president of the street club, but I want to, move into the fact that you switched careers.
I did.
You said that you were a beautician for a long time.
I was a beautician.
And you made a transition. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I used to work on the corner of the street. There was a salon called Oakley's Beauty Salon. There was a barber shop there. It was a salon, a barber shop, and there was a lounge on the corner of the street where they would go in and get their drinks and stuff. And that was there, for a long time. So I worked in the beauty salon until they started doing this reorganization, changing the building over. That's what they did. They changed the building over. So there was no longer, Oakley's Beauty Salon was no longer there. We moved down on 152nd. And from there, I moved over to Jones House of Beauty, who's still there on 150, this 52nd or 51st. In Kinsman. So I did hair for a number of years, for, about 15 years or so. And I can remember that Tara would be coming home, and I would be in the salon, and I would go out and I had them drop her off at the salon. I would go out and get her off the bus and bring her into the salon, and she would sit there while I was doing my clientele, and then we would walk home. So, always continuously staying involved, with the children.
Yeah.
But later on, as the children began to get older, I took on the position of doing hair. I did some research, and I wanted to find an occupation that would allow me time to spend time with my children, to be involved with the schools. And I found that my schedule could be flexible if I was doing hair. So, I joined into that. And later on, I decided that the hair was not, kind of fitting with me. It served its purpose, for me to be able to get the kids, through school. But I went back to school after 20 years of being out of school.
Nice.
And I went to school for nursing. My mother was a nurse. She retired from Cleveland Clinic after 32 years.
Wow.
She worked herself up from the ranks of being a nurse's aide to a LPN, and went on to be an RN.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So me and mom, had some discussions, and she was, telling me if I got a job, if I went to nursing school, I got a job, I would always have a job.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Always have a job.
Absolutely.
So I went to nursing school. It was very challenging for me after being out of school for 20 years. Very much challenging, but I got through it. I'm one of those determined people. Once I set my mind to something, I said this was what I was going to do. So I wind up doing it, and got out of school, went to the state board and passed the board on my first try.
Great, wonderful.
So I became an RN, and I retired from Cleveland Clinic after 15 years of being, at Cleveland Clinic.
My goodness.
So
Shirley.
so,
You have such a
yes, that was
wow.
Determination.
I mean, to tell you, and you live that, certainly we can see that in your children, and how it is that you take care of everybody in the neighborhood and others, that maybe you didn't know before.
Yeah.
You said that you were, you had different positions as a nurse at Cleveland Clinic. So, again, your ability and your giving spirit shows everywhere. Tell us about your involvement in church. I know that you're very involved in church.
I'm actively involved with my church group. I go to United House of Prayer on Cedar, 8700 Cedar Avenue. I have served on various positions there at the church. I am currently the president of one of the school boards. One of the boards there at the church. And at one point, prior to the time that my mom got sick, I was president of presidents, was president of all the groups in the church. They had to come through a meeting, through me. So, I've always been actively involved. We were church people. My grandmother, from the South, we were raised in church, and, actively, involved as a youngster, and remained actively involved, as an adult. So once my mom got ill, I had to, back away from some of the activities that I was doing in the church. And my mom and I belonged to the same church.
Oh, okay.
She was secretary for this church for 52 years.
Oh.
She went through nursing school and, remained secretary of the church.
Oh my.
She had to resign for a little while and then came back to be the secretary of the church. So
My goodness.
when she passed, she had spent 52 years as the secretary of the United House of.
Oh my goodness, wonderful. And I understand your mother passed last year. We're so sorry.
Year before last, in March, that was the second year. That's it. And it struck me, very hard because, as I said, I was the only child.
Mhm.
When I finally came to live with my mom, we established a special bond. It was more like we were sisters, than mother and daughter.
Mhm.
Because being there with my grandmother, I call my grandmother Ma, so and call my mother Mommy. So, we had a special bond. We did everything together.
Oh, wonderful.
We traveled with the church together, when they would have the fireworks, I would go and get her and we go to fireworks together. We just did a little bit of everything together. So it hit me very hard when, my mom passed. I would have her come over here on the porch and we would sit out on the porch and she would come over here and plant flowers, in my yard. And it was, that special bond. So it's taken me a minute to, get to the point where, I'm trying to overcome, that emptiness that I feel with her being gone.
Mhm. She's always with you. She will be forever. I want to go back to Kenny just for a second because I understand, well, most of us know that Shaker has all seniors do a senior project. So we're going to go back to your high school days, Kenny. It may have been a little while ago, but share with us what your senior project was.
Yeah, that
We're
picture
glad
is,
there's a picture of it.
yeah, it's an old picture, 87. So yeah, as part of our senior year, they give the students the option to do some type of activity where they don't have to be in school for the entire year, in terms of attending classes. So you get together with an advisor and come up with some type of program that they'll sign off on. And in a lot of ways, it's a way for the students to escape from school after 12 years of being in the Shaker School District. But it's also an opportunity for the students to get involved in something, like some of them would do something with their family businesses or do internships and things like that. Something that would, down the road might further benefit them as they're heading into college.
Sure.
So, I've always been interested in art. I ended up graduating from my college with a studio art degree. Don't do as much with it as I could or should, or as my mom might like me to, as other people. But as part of my senior project, I chose to do a mural. And in fact, it was a dual project because I did my own mural, but I also ended up retouching a couple of other murals that had been staples in the building for a long time. Some of them had just gotten, deteriorated to the point where they just looked terrible. So in addition to making my own, I helped go around and refurbish some of the others in the school.
Oh, nice.
This was my little contribution. It's kind of my farewell to Shaker after many, many years. And of course, I'm always surprised when I go back. I haven't gone back and checked it in a little while, but I'm always surprised when I go back and see it's still there, because
is it still there?
I believe it is. I haven't checked in a little while, but they do rotate through the spaces. There's only so many spaces available in the school, and so periodically there will let some murals get repainted over.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm always surprised when I go back and I see that it's still there.
Oh, here's your sister. Hi, Tara.
Um,
She said she thinks it's still there.
yeah, I think it's still there too.
Okay.
I don't know if I guess
Yeah,
it has some kind of enduring.
that's
Somebody must
something.
love it, so that
Yes,
they
obviously.
leave it there.
It is a symbol of Shaker, obviously, if it's been there since 87.
Yeah, it's been a
That is,
long time.
wow. That says a lot about your artwork there and your concept. Well, tell us about it. Tell us about it. What it is. I see the red gown.
Well, we're graduating, and the whole idea is, we've had 12 years of fun, and it's time to move on. So, we're kind of looking at all the fun and thinking, well, I guess it's time to go now. And so that's my whole concept is, that kind of farewell to,
Nice.
the Shaker School District, farewell to, 12 years, and here's to the next adventure as we move on.
Yes, yes, yes. That's wonderful. It's so nice that you have this picture. So, because we could talk about it and then have to go to the school, but it's so nice that you do have this photo of the mural. And I want to ask, does anybody have questions? People have been chiming in here and there. We have a little bit of time for questions. Anybody want to ask any questions of Shirley or Kenny?
Hi, this is Mel. I have a question.
Yes.
First, I want to say it's a wonderful presentation. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And she mentioned she was a beautician.
Mhm.
And I wondered if she knew someone named Kathy Mosby or Catherine Smith.
No,
No? Okay.
I don't recall.
How about Unique Beauty Salon?
I remember Unique, I remember that salon.
Yeah, on Cedar?
But I was not in contact with the beauticians that worked there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, she was a beautician. She had a beauty salon right there on 86 in Cedar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Close to your
Mhm.
Her and her
Yeah.
mother. And they started out on Kinsman, and then the mother bought that property over there.
Yeah, that's down by where my church is.
Right.
And, I remember the name Unique because that's my granddaughter's middle name, Tajane Unique Beard.
Okay.
So, I remember that name and that salon stood out to me.
Right.
That's good.
You were there a lot of years.
Yes.
But thanks for the presentation. You're doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want you to share. Thank you, Mel. Anybody else have-
Hi, I'm Rhonda. Miss Ramsey, I don't think I ever met you, but just listen to your story really touched home how you mentioned what you went through with your children at Mercer and different things in school. And it just really touched home because I faced the same challenge. My kids just started at Woodbury, and here it is years later, we still facing the same fight.
Yes.
This
I
is
agree with you wholeheartedly. The things that I was fighting for back in 87, we have not closed that gap at this particular point. And that's been almost 50 years.
Mhm.
So, the Shaker School District has a lot of work that needs to be done, and building new buildings and all of these different things is not going to address the issues that we have. I was a part of, they did a little program called Shades of Gray.
Yes, tell us.
And I was an activist, for the children back at that particular time. My son was still in the high school at that time. So, we were dealing with some of the same issues that we're talking about now. Unfortunately, fortunately for me, my son was very mild-mannered and wherever he went, he did his best, at what it was that he was doing. But still, even with that, and him being talented, we still ran up to obstacles that, were, not really designed for a Black male student.
Mhm. Mhm.
It hurt my feelings so bad when I had a Black male teacher say to my to me that my son did not belong. And I'm thinking, and I said to him, why are you not trying to support him and encourage him to be the best that he can be? If it's something else he needs, why don't you recommend, something to help him instead of trying to deflate his ego and saying he does not belong here? And I think even to today, we have a small amount of students that really take advantage of what the Shaker School has to offer. They have dynamic programs
Yeah.
that they offer, there in Shaker schools. And a lot of our students don't take advantage of what they had to offer. I have a grandson that will be going to the high school, and they did a tour at the high school, and he was so impressed. It's like, there's weight rooms and there's all kinds of different stuff there at the high school. There's different things that you can do, and a lot of our students don't really take advantage of the opportunity that they have being a part of this district.
It does.
Sometimes we have to fight for them. I fought for my children all the time that they were in school. I was, we had a one and a half income, when my children were coming up. But my kids stayed involved with everything. I went up to the recreation board. I'm like, I want my child to be involved in this. And I found out they had scholarships programs. And my kids, I took advantage of all of that. If you have a scholarship, then I need one because I want my kids involved. So I got them to be actively involved in many things because this squeaky wheel, if you do a lot of talk and make a lot of fuss, they will find some stuff. I think a big part of it, they just wanted to keep me quiet. Let's give her, if this is what she needs, let's give her this, because I was not going to back down, from a fight. Never.
Thank you.
I have to chime in on that too, because as much of a fighter as my mom has been with the school district, she also had to wage battle with us too, to keep us involved and keep us, motivated. Going through school, I admit to freely being a little bit naive in a lot of ways. And there were some things that would just kind of fly over my head. And without my mom's encouragement and without her, pointing out some of these things, there's a lot of things that I just would have missed. When you take into example, the opportunities that the Shaker School District offers. And when I was coming up, I think the school was still minority. I think right now it's majority minority.
Right.
But when in regards to those AP classes, you found that there was a tracking system, and a lot of the non-minority students, and then those students that were considered, very good students, were in all of these AP classes, and they were tracking. And then you found that the other students were being tracked into other classes. And I had the experience of settling down actually from one class, an AP class, into a lower level class. And I got down there, and it was very stark for me to see the difference, because I suddenly realized, well, for one, I didn't belong there. It just didn't feel right. But also I just felt like, why is there this stark difference between this set of students and this set of students? If the school should just be working to get all of the students up to a certain par, but and I can't say that it's only Shaker, but I do know Shaker does go about trying to make sure that they keep their numbers, keep their image, and they want to be able to graduate a certain amount of students and be able to tout that we send this many students to this many colleges. And it would be interesting to see how much that is still prevalent in the school district now.
Well, I'm really proud to say that my daughter Miata has had a lot to do with de-leveling. De-leveling, that's what they call it. so that the students are not tracked any longer. There will still be AP classes, but at the middle school level in particular, all students are considered, or high school level, honors is the only choice they'll have. And so it's about everybody being in a place where the expectations are really high. And we see it all the time. You know, you offer students challenge, students meet the challenges that are offered to them, but they
Yes.
have to be in the place where the challenges are there. And, you know, not a lower expectation, but a higher. We know that, you know, I think we've all been in situations where we have had to push ourselves, you know, to achieve what was necessary and realize that it's possible. It's absolutely possible. But
I
you know,
just like to say that once my children, my girls, I had to push them a little bit more. Once my girls finally graduated from school and realized the type of education that they had gotten and how much more they could have gotten, I know my middle child came back and said, Mom, you know, I can see that, you know, Shaker did a great job in terms of, you know, preparing us. And I just wish that I had taken advantage of more, you know, of the opportunities that was there, you know, in terms of, you know, the education, because my son did stuff like, you know, remember you were working in the sound room or on stage doing lighting and all of that stuff. They offered all of that, you know, types of things. And a lot of our children never even had the opportunity to venture out and try those things.
yes, yes. One of the other things I want to ask you before we leave is about your grandchildren, because you have grandchildren in the system as well. Tell us how many grandchildren you have.
I have 8 grandchildren. 2 of them are currently in the school district. Tyree is at the middle school in 8th grade. And I've been having some challenges, you know, with him. I show up at the school and they are like, okay, you know, you're a grandmother, and they want to, you know, well, do you have permission to, you know, get his records and stuff? And there were several times that my daughter verbally gave them permission, but they didn't seem to be able to find it whenever I made an appearance, you know, at the school. But that never deterred me. I went right on, let me see the principal. Let me see the 8th grade principal. So I had an opportunity, you know, to go in and talk to him and tell them what my concerns were, you know, with Tyree. He has IEP, and you know, some of the directions that, you know, he was going in and they were sending him in, you know, I was not pleased with. Tyree is a very soft-spoken, you know, young man, and you know, he doesn't want to make any waves. He just want to be there and half do his schoolwork, and you know, I just want to move from one point to another. So I'm still involved with trying to, you know, encourage him. And my youngest granddaughter is Sanai. She is currently at Woodbury. She's a 5th grader at Woodbury. So all these children have been in the Shaker School District from day one.
Generations.
They
And
went from
they have you in there advocating for your children, grandchildren, and everybody else's children. I mean,
yes,
honestly, when it
yes.
is, I mean, you're educating folks about educating all the children, and a great granddaughter. I wanted to also mention just, Megan had put up how people can access the Witness to History interviews on the Shaker Library site, shakerlibrary.org/Moreland, if anybody's interested in looking at our former interviews and those that are coming up. So we'll just keep doing this. Anybody else have questions for Shirley?
Here, Shirley and Hooper.
Mhm.
It isn't a question at this point. I do have a question, but first of all, I want to commend you for your perseverance and your interest in your children and your grandchildren. We had our children started in 1968 in the Shaker schools, and the last one graduated in 1986. And I can't say that everything was favorable, but I think one of the major things is that we we persevered. My husband and I,
Yes,
before he passed, he did the same thing. And you really have to do that in order. It doesn't make any difference where your children are. And I
that's
can
right.
hear that very clearly from what your presentation has been beautiful. It's good to hear that you had that desire to make sure that life was better for your family. And you have to do that. You really do. At Ludlow, I want to ask a question. In the gifted classes, were these classes integrated?
They were predominantly white. I
Uh,
think there was, Kenny, was it two or three?
okay.
Um,
2 or 3.
You're muted. I think you're muted, Kenny.
Sorry. It was me, it was Jonathan Garvin. It was, oh, I'm gonna butcher her name. It was uh, two other young women, two other girls. So I think total it was maybe 4 or 5 of us. Yeah, it was a small number of us.
Same here.
and I also wanted to say the first year that he was in the program, and they were moving on to the next grade. I had a teacher that approached me and said that she wanted him out of the program.
Oh,
So of course, me and Mark Freeman had a conversation about that. You
uh-huh.
know, we had a conversation about that because you have finally found a spot where my child fits in. And what they were trying to do is open up a spot for another student to
Uh-huh.
be moved in, because they had a set amount of students that, you know, was in the program. And, you know, if they continued every year, they would be in that program. And the only way another person could get in is one had to drop out. So
Uh-huh.
this particular teacher was telling me my son was too emotional.
Mm.
And she just felt that, you know, he would be better suited, you know, in a different type of situation. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, he cries. I say he's a fourth grader, you know. When I get upset, even to this day, I cry.
Mhm.
So why would you penalize my child? Is his grades up to par? So we went through a thing about this. I had one of the teachers follow him into the next year and tell me there's absolutely no reason that your son should not continue. But if I had not been an advocate and pushed and said, no, you're not getting ready to do this,
Mhm.
you know, this is where you put him. You said his IQ showed that he could be here. So now he's here and he's going to stay. I don't know if Kenny remember that, but yeah.
Good
I
for you. Good for you.
believe me, it was not all fun and glory, you know, but I think it was this one particular teacher
It was.
who, and I won't say her name, even though I still remember her to this day. But and I think I could say this for all of the minority students. We all had our issues with that program, and I think not just the minority students. It was, the students as a whole, because like I said, when we all got together,
Mhm.
we were kept together for 3 years. And I think in the normal course of school, as you graduate to another year, you're going to be mixed up with other students. The odds of you being with the same students every day in every class is going to be rare. But for this instance, we were with each other. And so we kind of formed our own little knit group by the fact that, we felt like we were, being singled out, even though, they're trying to give us an opportunity. But, it became apparent from the other students in the school, like, well, why are they being treated differently than us? And coming out of that program, I think a lot of us as students had mixed feelings about it. And of course, the minority students had mixed feelings about it. But, this one in particular teacher, I think, just had her own agenda, and it probably wasn't as apparent to the students as it was to others, but I still have one endearing memory where I'm in class and she's asking all the students about something space related. And maybe this was just God's way of doing it, but I had come in that day and I'm reading a book, and the exact question that she'd asked about, I had just read like 10 minutes ago. And so she's looking around and she's like, so who of you can answer this question? And nobody has any idea, but I'm sitting there with my hands raised and I'm like, I know the answer. And she very clearly looked at me and she says, you don't know the answer.
Whoa.
And I stood up and I said, quite matter of factly, yes, I do.
Good for you. Good for you.
And she said, okay, then what's the answer? And I repeated verbatim the answer that I had just read in front of the class and in front of her. And of course, she had no way to back out from that, because I had given her the answer, and all she could sort of do was just be like, well, okay, and move on.
Good for you. Good for you.
You're coming in.
And related to that, I'm curious as to when you challenged the AP, the black AP professor, what was his response?
Well, actually, it was a white. You
I'm
mean
talking about your mom. When your mom challenged the black AP professor.
He was, I'm looking at, some of the things in comparison with, some of the other students. I'm like, well, why are you comparing him with the other students? He's an individual. And as an individual, he needs to have the opportunity to show himself and show what he can do, we were at odds. We were at odds that year, and eventually, I don't know if that was the year that you went down to a lower classroom and we wind up, putting him back in that program, but we battled, that teacher. But I had tears in my eyes when, I think about and I look at the fact that this was a Black male teacher that was, not trying to support and encourage me.
Thank you both for persevering through all that.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Man, thank goodness for you. Thank goodness for you. We have any final questions for Shirley or Kenny? This has been just a wonderful, wonderful time with you two this evening. Really a wonderful time. Did we have any other pictures, John?
I have a comment.
Yes. Oh, go right ahead, Iris.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Shirley, I had to jump in. You already have shown everybody what a superwoman you have been in the field of education and helping to guide not only your children, other children. You open a lot of doors, but at the same time, I want everybody to know, because I was walking side by side with you, you were a serious community advocate.
Always.
Serious. I'm proud to know that, we've been neighbors for a long, long time.
I became president of the street club after being here for a couple of years. At that particular time, the street club was Shelton, Nicholas, and Sudbury.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I took on the presidency role of the street club, and worked tirelessly with the Moreland Community Association. Also, the name that the Community Association has to this day came out of my living room upstairs.
Yes.
That name has stuck with them, because my position at that point, we were having a street club meeting. And I said, we were tossing around names. And I said, if we're really going to do something and get up and really back up what it is that we're saying. Why don't we call it Moreland on the Move? And so that name came out of my living room upstairs in my house.
Right, wonderful. And here we are. How many
Yes.
years later? These pictures are just wonderful. These are wonderful. You know, representing your leadership. And I love the middle one with the seesaw. And we're going to see a little bit more, you know, because you've been vigilant about the playground and everything that's been happening just tirelessly through all of this time. It never ends. It never ends. Shelton Road is not Shelton Road without Shirley Ramsey.
Yeah. I walked the streets many a days, passing out flyers, you know, talking to my neighbors. At that point, we knew each other as neighbors. You know, I knew my neighbors, and I would go door to door and hand out flyers and talk to them, encourage them to be a part of the street club. You know, I think we had one of the strongest street clubs, you know, for a long time, you know, in the little Moreland community. Because parents, you know, were, you know, they were willing to listen, willing to, you know, support me, encourage me. We had block parties every year where we would block off the street. I had DJs on my front lawn for many years, you know, disc jockeying the street club and stuff. So, you know, I have always been an advocate for community and for the school system.
Yes, absolutely. Giving us some ideas, folks. The weather has broken. We're somewhat post-COVID, somewhat. So we have to bring much of this back. We absolutely do. We absolutely do. Well, thank you. Thank you so, so much for everything that you've done, not only just for being our guest this evening on Witness to History, but for your tireless work for so many, for your family first, and then for everybody else. And, you know, clearly for the Moreland community. So here's my contact information, everybody who's just, you know, waiting to be on Witness to History. Please feel free to give me a call. There I am, 216-509-4018, or send me an email. I am happy to say that we have a guest for June 12th. So mark your calendars, everybody. Sabrina Heath will be our guest in June. So June 12th, I looked to make sure we didn't have any basketball conflicts or whatever else. Father's Day is the 19th. So June 12th is the date that we will be here. We'll have a wonderful conversation with Sabrina. But I want to give a wholehearted thank you to Shirley and to Kenny for being with us this evening and all the support that we get from our Moreland neighbors. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank
Everyone
you.
have a wonderful
Enjoy.
evening.
You can
Thank
still
you.
enjoy some of this wonderful weather.
Bye.
Mrs.
Thank you
Ramsey.
all.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.